After starting your Arc Raider's journey and leveling up a bit, a wonderful thing begins to happen. You've started to amass enough resources and leveled up your crafting enough that you can actually start to begin to graduate from needing to mostly rely on your starter gray weapons. And you begin to regularly be able to equip and wield the uncommon green guns, which are quite the step up from your starter guns. And these really help in your ability to survive more regularly when you go topside. But that begs the question, which of these green guns are the best and which are the worst? Dr. Pooplove here, and that's what I'd like to find out. In this video, I have tested and ranked each of the 4 green guns on a tier list, with S being the best and Poop Hater being the worst. We'll talk about how each of these weapons fare against the Arc, how they fare against other players, as well as consider the resources and mods needed to level up and improve the viability of these bad boys. Starting with the absolute worst of these green guns, and that is the Burletta. Now, when I declare this the worst, I do want to clarify something. Being the worst doesn't actually mean that I hate this gun. In fact, this is one of my favorite guns in the entire game. As someone who loves wielding single firing pistols that rewards a quick trigger finger and accuracy, this is definitely the type of gun that I love in video games. But I still have to recognize this is just simply not as strong as many of the others, and mostly it falls flat. This thing has low damage, a fast fire rate, and high stability. And when you level this thing up, it's really only going to improve the reload speed and the durability, which I feel like the benefit here is not really worth how many mechanical parts you gotta put into this. Instead, I often just opt for a light magazine extension to make my mags a little bit bigger, and that seems to do enough of the trick. Now topside, this is not going to be your best bet for the Arc. The light ammo is pretty ineffective for them, and so this really is only going to be decent for the smaller enemies like the pops and the ticks and even wasps. You can go for weak spots on things like the Hornet, but it is much harder of course, and needing to spam shots means you need to fire a good deal of them and right on target. And look, don't even bother with the bigger guys, as even though they do have weak spots, you are still going to be eating through your ammo and probably not going to have enough to even do much damage to them. Really, what the Burletta is best at is as a closer range PvP gun, where it actually does do pretty decently. The fast fire rate does well, and if you can manage to get headshots, this can serve you quite nicely. I typically put that light magazine extension on this so that I have a better chance of taking people down in one mag. Despite that though, it's still not going to be your best PvP option among these weapons, and honestly it is similar enough to the Kettle, which is a starter gun that takes a lot less resources, that you might end up just wanting to opt for that instead. It pains me to do this because, as I said, I love this gun, but yeah, this one is a poop hater. But the next gun we have is a significant step up, and that is the Arpeggio. The Arpeggio is a burst firing gun which takes medium ammo. It has low damage per bullet, but it does shoot 3 at a time, which does make that damage higher. And it also has decent range, but a lower fire rate in between bursts. Now, perhaps the best part about leveling this up is actually how much faster you can make this fire between bursts, making one of its biggest downsides less downsidey. This also will improve durability and reload speed as well when you level it up. And really for that, I like to put this on a level 3 to reduce those downsides enough, which can actually call for a lot of resources. One thing that you'll notice about the green guns is it really makes you respect metal, which you put into the refiner for mechanical components, as well as simple gun parts, which often can require a lot of seeds from Celeste. Unless you can find these things topside, metal and seeds are going to be very important for you. Now for mods on this, really I like the extended medium mags to give me more shots, as well as muzzle brakes and vertical grips to handle the recoil from that burst pattern. And topside, this one is decent for the Arc. Medium ammo lets you engage a bit more with the armor plating, and having more bullets than most heavy ammo options gives you a bit more forgiveness for missing shots. It can still struggle a little bit for the Hornets, but it's definitely a much better option than your light ammo weapons. This also is pretty good for PvP, doing decent damage and being a great pick at medium and longer ranges. I will say it does feel like it struggles a little bit at closer ranges, especially if you don't have any cover, as you can run out of ammo fast and the time between bursts can hurt, especially if your opponent has something even like the Stitcher, which has sustained fire. But if you have some cover, you can pop in and out between bursts in order to compensate for this. Overall, this is a solid pick and something you can wield by itself without needing a second gun, and that's definitely a huge plus. But with a lot of the resources that are needed to put into this to make this a more viable option, I can't really forget about that. So ultimately, I'm going to give this a high B. But the next gun we have is quite impressive and capable of being great at both the ARC and PvP, and that is the El Toro. Now, this is a shotgun that takes shotgun ammo. It's more of a close range type gun, but it does have good damage. Now, as you level this thing up, you can increase your fire rate and your magazine size, which is really nice and can be very helpful in battle. And as for mods, things like mag extensions are good, as well as things like shotgun chokes, which help improve your range and allow you to shoot a little bit further. Now, when you take this thing topside, this thing is actually very powerful. For the ARC, you can just pump a few shots into most of them and take them out really quickly, as long as they are close enough. And often most of these do end up getting pretty close. Even the wasps and hornets end up kind of trying to get close range to you, which allows you to use this pretty nicely. This isn't going to be your best option for things like the snitches, but that's okay. Another plus really is that because this is a shotgun, it takes less precise aiming, which means you don't have to necessarily be aiming too nicely for those weak spots. You can be a little bit sloppier and still get some good damage in. But this thing is also really great for PvP, especially inside of buildings in those close quarters, as it just takes a few pumps to players and can wipe multiple out, sometimes even without needing to reload. Now, it's not that great at longer range PvP, so if you're trying to use this, you'll just need to be able to close that gap. This is an all-around great pick and one that can serve you really well. And so for that, I'm going to give this an A. But there really is no match for this next one, which is one you will even see being used in late game play just because of how great this is. And that is the Anvil. Now, the Anvil is a hand cannon that shoots high damaging, heavy ammo into the enemies, and it's quite awesome at doing so. It has 6 rounds per mag with a slow fire rate and a bit of a slow reload, but this does pack a punch. And at higher levels, you can speed that fire rate up quite a bit, making this even better, as well as reduce your dispersion recovery time. Now, this weapon also has some pretty good mod capabilities with an actual dedicated mod that you can add, the Anvil Splitter, which basically changes the nature of this gun, essentially turning it into a shorty shotgun sidearm. Although, to be honest, while this does improve the damage, it does hurt the range, and I think that's one of its better aspects of it. So it's not something that I really would intend to use too often. Personally though, I do like to put a silencer on the Anvil so that I can take out the ARC more silently, especially in solos when I'm just not trying to make too much noise. And being topside, this really is your trusty ARC Slayer. The heavy ammo is really good versus the armor plating, and unlike the Pharaoh, which only has a single shot, you get 6 shots before you need to reload, which for things like wasps is more than enough, and even for hornets, you won't have to reload as long as you get enough good clean shots in on them. Now, this is also pretty good for the smaller guys, and I do really love that for things like the pops and the fireballs, you only need to give them 1 shot to take them out. But what really sets this apart from the other weapons is that it is really a very viable option for the bigger ARC enemies, being able to deal good damage to things like leapers, bastions, and even rocketeers. And so this opens up so much more for you to engage with, is good versus basically every single ARC, and is very reliable. Now, this is also pretty decent on the PvP side, being something that can dish out beefy shots to the players at range, or be something that you can use to get starting damage on a player at closer ranges before switching to something a little bit faster. I will say it's definitely not the best PvP gun, especially if you're missing shots like I can at times. That can be a brutal punishment, as well as having a slower fire rate. It can be a bit of a challenge, but for the most part, this can largely hold its own. And to be honest, I just find it very hard to go topside without having my trusty Anvil at my side. And so, yeah, this one is getting the highest S tier possible. And so here we have our list. Here is where each of the green weapons stand when compared to each other. But we still have to figure out how the rest of the guns in this game stack up. But let me know what you think down in the comments below, and be sure to tune in as we continue to test and rank the rest of the guns in this game. Be sure to check out the ranking I already did for the gray weapons here, and I want to say a special thank you to my YouTube members for joining the Bowel Movement. But otherwise, so long, Pooper Troopers.